is the November 18th meeting of the Sewer Commissioners. I'd like to call the meeting to order. Roll call,
Sandy Slavin.
Donna Bronk.
and Jim Gibberti,
What time is it, please?
6:30.
Thank you. There's no clock in here.
At 6:30.
Yep. Next we have citizens' participation, not seeing anybody here. For that, we will move right along. For sewer business, the first item on the agenda is an abatement request from 55 Lake Avenue, which is, recommendation is it be denied for the amount of $323 because the abatement was submitted after the deadline.
I make a motion that we,
What, sorry, when was the water turned off? 2018?
We're not talking about that. We're talking about they did not, what we're talking about is the fact that it was not, the abatement was not submitted in time.
I wonder if they knew it.
So
Okay.
just for edification, it's on the back of every bill, and I know that many people probably don't read it, but all the abatement processes are on the bill.
And guess what? When you pay your bill, you tear it off, and half that information is no longer available to you because it was in the back of what you
Yeah.
submitted.
Yeah, I don't know, I kind of read my whole bill before I start tearing it up, but everybody's different.
So I have a,
I make a motion that we follow superintendent's recommendation denying 55 Wachunas Ave in the amount of $323.
I have a second?
Second.
Second was Sandy. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. 300.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes, sir.
If I may, to Commissioner Slavin's point, we do a newsletter with it. Do you think it'd be wise on that newsletter to make mention of the abatement process, so if somebody does tear it off without reading it, that they are aware?
And that way they can take that document and hang on to it as opposed to trying, because half of it's lost when they return their receipt. Yeah. So that would be, then they have it.
It's just a suggestion, Mr. Chairman. I'm thinking because if we can go out of our way to make sure that they're aware, but I know the bill, it's on the bill, it's on the back of the bill, but we could do that in the, if it's okay.
We should then. I mean,
Okay.
it's a simple thing, so
Yeah, we'll do that.
it would make
Okay.
sense.
Thank you.
Next, we have Frank's Way, and I'm gonna flip this directly to Guy, because this is bounced back and forth here.
Well, Mr. Chairman, to be frank, there's nothing. Excuse me, golf's popped up, I don't know how that
Well, that's
happened.
important. That's important.
Apologize. No, I was actually looking for the email I sent in regards to minutes, but I believe she came in, I wasn't involved, and you asked her another letter, and she's done that. And the letter here says that the water's been shut off since the 15th, and we knew that. And this letter is pretty straightforward. We've had other letters that acknowledge it being off, but also saying that it was, service was there because of fire and insurance. But if Mr. Chairman thinks this letter is enough for an abatement, then, you know, that's fine. I know she's been in, and she came, and she was asked to get a letter, and she got the letter, so I guess that satisfies it.
Well,
We denied it
Yes, we
because we
did.
said it was seasonal.
We denied it a couple of times.
Is it seasonal?
Well, so, that's a good question. It's not, she bought the property, and I guess what's happening is they're rehabbing it. And she has a few properties. And I guess there's an insurance issue, and they come down and they spend the summers and they work on it, et cetera, et cetera. And the water is on, but it's also to the building because of insurance purposes. Without that, she can't have insurance, and then it becomes a major problem. So, you know, what does all that mean? I don't know. But when I talk to the water district, the water is on, then it's off, she puts it on for a period of time, she puts it off. So I honestly don't know, I don't know, I truly don't know. This letter says it's been off back in November 15th, 2019, and still remains off to this date. That's the latest letter, so. And that's from Andy Cunningham, who's the
Right.
water superintendent.
Right, that's what I was,
And
that's why.
what she was asked to
So
get.
they
She
don't
got
need it for the insurance purposes to keep it on.
I don't know, that's from her. She's the one that said that, not Andy. Andy's saying it's off. She said she had to have it on for insurance purposes. So I don't know what the deal is, I truly don't.
What is your recommendation?
My recommendations always has been to deny it. I don't wanna go down slippery slopes, because others can do the same. However, that's my recommendation. That's all I can think of. If it's still on because of insurance purposes, what does that mean?
Well, that was the issue with 99.
And we had to have it on because,
And they needed the water for insurance, and therefore we did not abate them.
We did not.
For the same reason.
Absolutely.
So we've gotta be consistent.
I agree.
Even though they're not flushing anything, the water's still on.
Yes, there's no water coming to us, but the water's on, and that's our policy. And that's the criteria for abatement, so, I don't know. And Andy, I left a couple messages, I never had a chance to talk to Andy to dig further into Andy's letter, what is he stating, but, but his letter says it's off. And she went down and saw him, and here we are.
I guess my only question is, did we tell her if she got proof, we would approve it? What
We
did we?
didn't tell her we would approve anything. We told her that she needed to submit proof that the water is off, because the information that we had as of the last meeting was that there was still water functioning there.
So the note we
So-
have from October 14th meeting says 6 Franks Way, pending note of water department for shut-off date. That's how we left it in October meeting.
Right.
Here it is.
Because we didn't have a clear understanding with the information that we had, what the status was. And she didn't have anything from the water department indicating that it was on or off.
Okay, Guy, your recommendation?
Again, as I look at the records, she paid a bill in 2021 for water, because, so that's what troubles me. Because the
Well,
water is on because of insurance, and she's paying for it, but yet the water's off. So it's a contradiction to me. So I don't know.
I don't know what the answer is on that either, because if you go by Andy's letter, and this is the water department now, and that's just not us. They're saying it's been off since the 19th or 15th of November.
But look at the
Of
billing
20.
history.
But the billing
I'm
history from the
ready.
water department, it
The
says
water
it's on.
department superintendent is telling us it's been off since November 15th, 2019.
I mean, she's been paying her water bill. She paid in May 2021, she paid in November 2020, she paid in May 2020.
And then, and the other documentation talks about 1/13/19, water shut off for the season. What does that mean?
That's- I
so-
understand where you come from. I mean,
Work was completed, so this was a shut off for the season, so it's very contradictory, but,
Yeah, she said a shut-off payment of November 2019.
Mhm.
But she continued to get a water bill.
Yeah.
And so she shut off her season. And I don't know what's going on, because if you go one deeper, that says work order, shut the water off for the season, which the water department did, so I don't know,
Yeah, that's a $45 bill for that.
yes. To shut it off for the season, and then she puts it back on, and then she says that it's for insurance purposes. So I don't know, Mr. Chairman, I'll leave it into your purview. I would be consistent with others that we've dealt with the same issue, and I would be consistent saying that we should deny it. But I'll leave it into your hands. If you think the letter is suffice, then that'll be that.
Well, I make a motion that we follow the recommendation of the superintendent and deny the request for $699.01 for 6 Franks Way.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Right.
300. Okay. Now we have a
Request.
request. To run
This-
a
yes.
continuance of a sewer line on Onset Avenue down to Gibbs Ballpark Road.
Some-
In 3 properties altogether, you talking about?
Well, it's kind of, Gibbs Ballpark Road goes to the VFW. This gentleman, Ken Leonard, who owns Reken Properties, he's been buying distressed property in Wareham, rehabbing them and renting them out. So he does a good job of putting rentals into the pool. 360 Onset Avenue is a house he's buying, he's rehabbing, and he'd like to tie it to sewer because the septic has failed and it's got a very small lot, and he says he can't put the septic in there comfortably, so he'd like to tie it to sewer. Sewer's a little up on a manhole, in the street, and he can go to that if he so chooses and pay for it all at his cost with a single-family home. But he said he'd be willing to extend that consideration to others in that area and the VFW. Nobody else has come forward. So at this stage of the game, what I'm suggesting is that we entertain his and let him tie in. And he's gotta do some work to get that done. In the interim, if the VFW comes forward and his neighbors come forward, I think that should be considered separately by the board and not in this, so.
If they were to extend, he said you got a sewer, he's got a connection point in front of his property.
So his property's here, and there's a manhole right about here, yes, I think,
So it's not far.
it's not far, no.
But if you were to extend it down to the VFW road, how many potential connections are there?
I think there's 3 or 4.
Only 3 homes between his property and
Yes, because he's at the corner here, and here's the road that goes to the VFW. So I think it's him, 1,
Okay.
2, and then 1 on this side, and the VFW itself.
Okay,
And then
so
there's
that's-
one a little further down, but I don't know if he'd get involved. So that's what he said to me, that he'd be willing to extend to those if they so choose to get involved. But I haven't seen anything that says they will. Maybe once he tells them he's got permission to tie in, they may or may not, but I think if they do choose to, which should be a good idea, then I think they should come and present that again, and we can probably
Okay.
allow that, so that's
So
where we
look
are.
at this as just the one hookup, that's all.
This is what he's asking for, the one hookup, he suggested that others would do it, but I don't have
That's-
anything
that's-
definitive.
He can work that one out.
So
Let us
he's
know.
looking at taking the line down Ballpark Road, not onto Ave. If you're
No.
saying it's the 3 houses on Ballpark Road.
He said, I have talked to a couple of my neighbors, which is on Ballpark Road, who are also willing to tie into the sewer. He said, I had Clap Construction come down, take elevations at the manhole to make sure he could do it. He's not sure if it's gravity or install grinder pumps, and that's fine. But I have no commitment from my neighbors. Who are the neighbors? I don't know. He said, I just
So-
talked to a couple
So
of
the
neighbors.
neighbors may not be the ones on Ballpark Road.
The
Maybe
neighbors, the
I'm
neighbors may not
confused.
be interested.
They may not be, he said he talked to them and they said, okay, yeah, they'd like to do sewer. But what I'm saying is that everybody would like to do sewer, but there's
Until they
costs
see the
involved.
cost.
You know what I mean? Till they said, because it's gonna cost, well, yeah, I'm good, so I don't know. But what I'm saying is that he's asking for himself for sure.
Basically, the bottom line is he's got a problem with his property. He wants to correct it vis-à-vis the sewer line.
That's
And
correct.
because he's putting it in, he's throwing the
Bone.
bone out there to the rest of them if they're interested.
The neighbors,
Fine,
absolutely.
let me know, and that hasn't happened, at least from our standpoint, so the only
I-
thing we've got here to discuss and act on is whether or not we allow him to do it, period.
That's how I interpret it, because he's got neighbors this side of him, neighbors on Ballpark Road. I don't know who he's speaking of, so until that
Exactly,
comes
so.
to fruition, I'm suggesting we just give it to him at 360 Git.
I agree.
I don't I'm reading this, it doesn't say, I want to connect, it says, if you continue the line, I will connect. He's not asking to connect, if I read this letter the way,
Well, he asked me to connect.
oh, but the letter
The
doesn't.
letter's kind of confused,
The
yes.
letter
Says that.
says, if you extend, I'll connect.
He says, I am writing a letter to request a
request a
continuation of the
continuance.
sewer line on Onset
Not
Ave
asking us to do anything.
down to the corner of Gibbs Park Road. He's at the corner of Gibbs Ballpark Road.
I don't see him
360.
asking us to do anything other than
He
allow
is.
him to connect.
He's asking us, yes, I am
So-
writing this letter to request a continuous sewer line on Onset Avenue down to the corner of, so I can tie my property located at 360
Okay,
F. That's what he's
So-
asking.
So,
to give him
That's not what he's
authorization,
saying.
well, it's,
just talking about connecting.
Then he goes on and says, I've talked to my neighbors,
Enough.
et cetera, et cetera.
but, so what will the cost be for him to connect to the sewer line?
I have no idea. That's
No,
on him.
Wait a minute, don't we say if you connect now, you pay the most recent?
No, okay, so I misunderstood your question. I don't know what it's gonna
I don't care
cost
about his
us.
cost, but
Yes.
we say, okay, there's a betterment,
betterment.
yes,
That's, I'm sorry, it's a sewer development fee, let's be
Yes.
clear. And it's to be paid at the time he gets his permit, that's what it is. There's a policy to offset those costs that he does, but I don't wanna get into that now.
no, but if he wants to connect, there's at least an $18,000 base fee that must be paid in order to connect.
Yes,
There
ma'am.
is no ability for him to, loan or anything like that, it has to be paid at the time.
That is correct,
Okay,
that's correct.
Development fee. is
Sewer
paid at the
development
time.
fee, that is
Yeah.
correct.
Yeah.
And all new connections pay
do
that,
we,
good point.
is he asking us to give him authorization to connect?
That's
Do
all
we
he's
vote on
asking.
it?
That's all,
That's all he's asking,
that's all he's
like
asking.
his property.
Not for him to connect, if he has to run the line, it's just.
That's his
nickel.
cost.
That's his cost.
Yeah,
So
all
the
he's-
only thing there would be was the sewer development fee.
Right, that's all we'd be concerned with.
And he's even willing to put a grinder pump, I mean, he's, if he had to.
Whatever he has to do, because it's, his says about sewer, and
Okay.
he can't put another one in,
Yeah,
septic
okay.
system, so whatever he has to do.
We have capacity for one more?
We're still there, we can get him in.
Okay, I make a motion, we approve the connection of Ken Leonard at, 360 Onset Ave.
We sold Kevin.
No, that's where he lives.
Oh, sorry.
Go a second,
Second.
all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
3-0-0.
Mr. Chairman, I want to
Yes, sir.
emphasize, it's probably neither here nor there, but his goal is to put another rental property into the town of Wareham, which is sorely needed, so
Oh, yeah.
I want to make sure that that's out there.
Helps her.
Okay.
Yeah, and I stuck on, discussion of increasing the sewer rates. I think we need to get back on track with that, because with all the additional expenses we've been incurring in the last
Well,
couple of 3 months,
so when was the last time we upped it?
year ago, year and a half
I
ago.
think a year ago, I think it was a year and a half ago, she actually came up with. So
I'm
there's
not-
a chart there that gives you some fees, but also in the very back, it talks about what percents and how much each percent, what it represents in actual cost, or actual money. So just to give the board an idea. Because I think at last meeting, I think, Commissioner Slavin said it was a year and a half, she went back to her notes, I think it's a year and a half, she went
Yeah.
back to her notes.
I'm looking,
That's
I'm
my
trying to confirm
approximate,
the
it's
date.
about that. You know, give or take a month or two. In that ballpark.
Oh, I found it, we raised the rates in January 2021. January 28th, 21, we raised the rates.
Okay.
That's right, because we discussed it back in like November, or October, November. Implementation.
So we can discuss rates, and you can look at this, but I wanted to show you what a percent was, whether 5%, 10%, 15, 20, in actual money. So a 5% increase is $200,008, that's it. And with that, we could probably borrow, I'm gonna suggest we could borrow probably maybe 6 million, maybe 5 million. With that, if we were to raise rates to cover we could probably borrow 5 million. And that would pay back the debt. But anyways, we haven't got to that yet, because we got projects, I'm meeting tomorrow with the engineers about the projects that we have out there. I have to meet with Mr. Sullivan to discuss all these projects and how we're gonna fund them all. What's pressing, we definitely have to finish our work on the Force Main, that's this year, that's going out to bid, so that, and we don't know what that number's gonna be, so we have to have that, and it's not in the budget, I don't have the money in the budget, so we have to figure out, we're gonna relook at retained earnings, because there's money out there against the retained earnings that may not be what we think there is, so that has to be resolved. So if we have to borrow the 4 million or whatever it is, we have to raise the rates, 5% will give us 28,000, which would pay for it, so we're trying to wrap all that up to give you guys a better idea of what we're looking at.
What are we borrowing the 4 million for?
To rehab Narrows Force Main.
Was that approved at town meeting?
Oh, yeah, we've been through that.
No.
It's been, no, not town meeting, we haven't done that yet, because it's out to bid. I'm gonna put out the bid to get hard
It's
money, but
going
it's
out-
on our capital plan.
I'm sorry, it's going out to bid, but capital planning hasn't approved it, town meeting hasn't approved it?
Capital plan's approved it, it's on capital plan. Narrows Force Main, we got it approved 5 years ago, because we had the report 5 years
Did it
ago,
come out of
6
town
years
meeting?
ago.
Sorry, did it I don't have it as a town meeting approving it.
I don't have, well, we didn't have it.
No,
done.
town meeting hasn't approved it, because we haven't taken it to
It-
town
that-
meeting.
It's been presented.
It's presented to get it on the list of.
I'm having a tough time. How can we put it out to bid when we don't have approval yet to spend it?
Because we're not gonna, once it comes out to bid, we'll have the exact amount we'll need. Because the town meeting gets upset when you say, I need approximately 10 million, and they say, well, what's the number? So we're gonna put it out to bid, get a real number, then go to town meeting in the
Okay,
spring and
if
say,
if we get a bid,
yes.
and there's a dollar amount, how
Yes.
long is that bid good for?
Well, we can ask it 3 months, 4 months, whatever it
And
is.
if we're going to when's the article due for town meeting?
We'll find out.
No.
It's gonna probably be
The next
April.
Next town meeting is the fourth Monday in April, therefore the articles are so it wouldn't be voted on until the fourth Monday in April.
That's fine. I'm not worried about it, because it's going out to bid now. We're finishing up the documents.
December, January, February,
It'll
March.
take them a month and a half to come back with a bid.
It'll take us
I
all
know,
of that.
but we're looking at almost 4 months,
So then
5
you're
months
then you're
between
talking
the
about-
bid.
Then you're talking about having it available, open for 3 to 4 months, which
Yeah.
covers you past the voting time.
We're under the gun, because to get it out to bid, then once you get it out to bid, you gotta give them time to review the documentation. They've gotta have question and answer, they've gotta come down and see what we're talking
Guy,
about.
wait a minute, I'm still lost. The estimated 4 million is for what project?
Narrows Force Main.
Do you have a date when it is going to be advertised?
I do, I have the dates.
Use the same number
And
behind.
this narrow
I think
force main,
it's
we're
not gonna
totally
advertise. I'm sorry.
we're totally redoing the force main from Narrows,
The lining.
lining it, from the Narrows, how far down?
To the plant,
All down Route 6,
all down Minot Ave,
Minot Ave?
Minot Ave. Narrows to Minot, under the river to the plant.
Okay,
Approximately, what is it, I wanna say a couple miles,
Was it 1.8? I think it's
something like that. We've been talking about this for 5 years.
Yeah, exactly.
I know, but bear with me when I'm trying to remember specifically.
Well, as bad as I am, so I gotta, I understand, I'm with you.
Age is a factor.
It's just pulling it back out is my problem.
Aren't you glad I can't reach you from here?
Yes, yes, definitely.
I spent a lot of time working numbers on this too, Guy.
Good, excellent, I do need that, I would be nice.
And I realize what we have to do, but I would like the board to consider that I think we need to go for the gusto, so to speak, because we haven't, because of all the expenses that are incurring. And we're just treading water, we're not going anywhere.
The bottom line for this, to begin with, was really to get this back on the table, not to come up with a decision tonight.
No, no, and I understand that, I'm just,
And what we're looking at is what Guy is saying, he's gotta get more information to come back with. And that the stuff that's being spent, the bidding process, on the items we've got out there right now, is to get these numbers all together to give us a better handle on what the recommendation should be for an increase. I mean, right now, these numbers are good, and if you're saying 5 to 6 million is all we're going to need, then you're looking at a 5% increase. But if you're talking about 15 million you're gonna need, then that's a different number. That's
Exactly.
a different increase. So until we get more information back, what we have here gives us something to at least look at and understand and have a feel for where we're going.
Well,
But we need a better number to be able to make a firm decision.
and I agree with you. I just did an analysis of costs versus the expenses and what we need to do. And I'm just letting the people know that, folks, we're gonna need close to 10%.
I,
Oh, I don't.
I agree. If you remember, I was looking for 20% for next 5 years. We're gonna meet and sit because we have a headworks that's gone, that's approximately 6 million. We have clarifiers that are gone, that's approximately 11 million. We have pump stations that need to be addressed immediately, and that's about 4 million. So the numbers are staggering. And so we know that there's different things out there, whether it's retained earnings or some of the money coming from
You're in the $25
infrastructures.
million category right there.
Yes, sir. And so we're gonna look at, there's money coming for infrastructure, there's money for COVID. So we're gonna meet with Derek and go over all these figures and see what's there. And then I'll meet with the engineers, we'll put all this together and then try to put a package and see what's the best way to approach the long term.
I mean, if ARPA funds are available, why in the hell aren't we going after them?
Well, because aqua funds, they are available, but not available, because we're not on the list for aqua. I can't apply for aqua, I can't apply for those. A selectman has to. And so you
For the
can,
town administrator.
yeah, you guys can hop me all we want, I can't do anything
No.
about it.
Why aren't you working with them to apply for that?
I'm working with
level?
Mr. Sullivan, we're looking at all funding avenues. But that's all we're doing, we're looking at funding avenues, because we have to figure it out. The immediate is why I said the 5% minimum immediately, because the force main, we're doing, because we're there, we've been doing this for 5 years, it's in trouble, it was supposed to be a fail by now, so that we're working towards. So that's why I was saying at least 5% would give us that funding so we can continue on. The bigger picture, we have to sit down and figure out how we're gonna do that, and figure out how much comes out of the budget, how much comes out of borrowing,
Right.
you know, how much, whatever, and that's,
Interest rates are so low, why aren't we borrowing?
well, we should.
I mean, they can't be much lower than they are now, we should be borrowing,
While it's still,
yes, well, we still can,
Well, we
lock
can.
them in.
Oh, yeah.
So
Cause even if you were to increase by 5%, that's only $280,000 of revenue increase, that's
it.
nothing.
That just paid, like I said, that's the $5 million we'd borrow, yeah, I agree.
That doesn't
Agree.
even cover interest.
no, we're gonna have to, that's what I said. You know, I spent a lot of time on it, and I'll tell you, I don't see you coming away with anything less than 10%. I really don't.
I agree, I know it's disconcerting, but it's reality. There's a lot out there.
When we did the last increase, which was a 3% increase, we said half of it would go to capital and half would cover the expenses, was that done?
Yeah, actually, it didn't cover what we did for capital, it didn't even, it
No, but
barely touched, it went towards
It
it.
would be toward
Yeah,
capital.
It went towards capital.
That 3% was not all to go to cover cost, it would be set aside for,
I get that, but what do you think, 1.5%, how much money, 50,000? Our interest was
Yes.
greater than that, so
I'm just-
it's just, yeah, I mean,
so it was what, 10 months ago, we increased it by 3%?
in that same 10 months, we put up 1.6 million for basins,
Yeah,
that we took.
but that's borrowed.
That's capital.
We've only, in 5 years, we've only gone up twice, and it's been, what, 3%?
In 12 years, we've gone up 4 times for a total of about $60.
Well, yeah, whatever, as long as I've been on, when I came on, I remember I came on in the beginning of the sewer commission, so we voted then for 3 and another 3, and that's it.
which never made sense, but inflation has been 3% annually, we should be raising the inflation minimum annually, and then inflation this year is 7% so far, I mean, it's crazy.
You saw how difficult it was to get that approved.
I know, it just doesn't make any sense. And we did some comparison, and and it's not to insult anybody, but the average person pays $100 a month for a cell phone, a couple $100 for cable TV, and sewer's averaging less than $50 a month. And I keep hearing we can't afford sewer, but we can afford telephones, we can afford cable, and no insult to anybody. What I'm saying is that sewer and water is a necessity, and you gotta consider the increases because they're real. And without them, we're in serious trouble.
Well, if you wanna make the better comparison, I think is, we talk about the cost of the cell phones, that's per person per month.
Yes.
So maybe we should be charging on the same basis.
I thought you were gonna compare to a Starbucks coffee.
Well, I could go there too, but I didn't, but I could go there too.
Because that comes back to us.
But, you know, you pay about $5-10 a day, $5 a day minimum for
Has
coffee.
there been any discussion with Mr. Foster regarding a change in a billing amount? I mean, he's got the software package that produces the invoices, and we can't surprise him.
What do you mean by billing amount?
How much money, when we put out a bill,
Yeah.
if we do an increase, does Mr. Foster know that we're looking at an increase so he can do a software change so the amount is correct on the invoice?
Because we submit the billing to him, and so he takes that billing number, submits it to the company that actually does the work. So no matter what it is, it gets
So
factored
you say
in.
Mr. Foster has nothing to do with it?
We submit it to him, he transposes it, whatever he does, to our company that does the
So
work.
the dollar
So-
amount means no change to how Mr. Foster does his job?
Not to my knowledge, and I'll verify that, but whether it's $1 or $1 million, his billing is pretty much the same.
I'm sure
Well, what I'd like to consider,
Billing unit.
what I'd like to talk to Mr. Foster about, to be frank, as we talk about increases, is maybe billing monthly. Would it be more palatable to people to do it monthly than twice a year?
We talked about that.
Because it's less,
They have a choice, they can pay
Well,
monthly, but they pay a little interest.
They
on
pay
how
interest on it.
But it can be done. I certainly don't want invoices of how many, with what, 58 cents now for a first class
It was
stamp?
just a thought, because I mean, some people, especially those of our residents on Social Security, they get paid monthly. It may or may not be easier, because sometimes you're saving that money, something comes up, you don't have it now.
Well-
And maybe paying it monthly, I'm just throwing it out there, and maybe there's certain individuals
They
that it
can-
would be beneficial to.
They can do it monthly.
Yeah, they'll just have to pay a little interest.
But if you do monthly for 12 months, after
Yeah,
30 days, that
it'll be
interest
fine.
keeps banging. So by the
Yeah.
end of the year, you've paid substantial interest. So you're right, but it's huge.
I certainly wouldn't wanna write my check, 12 checks versus 2 checks.
Well, because you and I can afford it, but there's some people
I'm
that
just
can't.
talking to people, even if they're, never mind, the cost of running checks, and therefore they'd have to do 12 first-class stamps, I mean, it's just, never mind.
I hear what you're saying, but again, it's the convenience of people having the money when the bill comes in. Because sometimes I get calls
Okay,
that,
what you're
so
saying-
I don't know. It's just
Maybe we ask
thrown out
Mr.
there.
I
Foster,
would think there would be no reason we couldn't, with discussion with Foster, on why
Come up
you
with a
can't
plan.
offer it where it could be, it costs you this much a month, it costs you this much quarterly, it costs you this much semi-annually, and it costs you this much on an annual basis. End of story. Take your pick, do whatever one you're gonna do.
I'd like to at least investigate it,
option.
and I don't wanna put any more burden on Mr. Foster and his department, but
No.
I'm just thinking of, as we raise rates, because to some folks, it's substantial. And it may be easier for them, more palatable to do it monthly. When I owned apartment buildings, I had some folks that could pay weekly without a problem. Monthly became a little bit difficult. So I lowered to weekly, I got paid every week, and it made it nice for me. And my bank liked it because I could make my mortgage payment. But nonetheless, some people, we're all different, and some people less fortunate than us, and it may be a good idea. We'll do some investigation and see what happens.
so we're gonna carry this on for another meeting?
Oh, yeah, this isn't gonna be settled tonight.
Okay.
It's some
Out
good
for
discussion.
discussion.
Because if you're
Get it.
thinking about raising the rates annually, we look at it in
In
January.
January,
Yeah, well, I wanna, and I want the rest of the board here too.
And it gives us time to meet with the engineers and get all these projects, some
Yeah.
hard numbers, and then we can meet Mr. Sullivan
Yeah, I think-
and get some concrete and move forward.
We need more hard numbers than what
My
we have at the first
budget
time.
is due to the town December 2nd. And we're pretty much asked to hold the line, and so that'll be a temporary budget, I don't know what you call it, it's just more work to do.
When will
so
we see the proposed budget?
I'm not so sure, I gotta decide what that is. No, once I get it into the town, I'll give it to you
So
simultaneously.
we don't see it before you submit it?
You can see, you can, cause I gotta write it, I'll write it next week, cause I'm gonna do it over Thanksgiving weekend. I'll submit it the following, cause I'm supposed to go in for surgery the first of the month, so I won't be around for the submit it. So I will try to get it done before then, so you can have a copy of it, then I'll submit it to Mr. Sullivan, and then we'll go from there.
So as a commission, we won't have a chance to comment on it?
You can comment on it. Well, let me say
As
this,
a commission?
yes,
Well,
it's not the final.
Okay.
Yeah, so you'll get it, you can comment, write all your recommendations, et cetera, then we can finalize it. Because at that time, we don't have indirect costs, we don't have a lot of things to add in, and so we'll figure all that out. So the final package, you certainly can comment on. Because you have to approve it, I think by, used to be January something, I'll have to look into that, but you have to approve it.
Right.
And December? what was-
Second, I have to have it into the town,
Okay,
which I will, I'll have it in, but it won't be finalized. It's just that I have to meet the deadline the second.
it will be, okay.
And I'll submit to you what I'm submitting to the town, to give you a base. And on this list you gave me, Sandy, it's right here, Narrows Force Main. This is your list of all capital projects.
All right,
And here it's this is 5 million, it's in this 5 million here,
okay, on the capital plan,
yeah.
okay.
capital plan. Okay.
Since you haven't had a chance to say anything yet, Guy, do we
I
have your
haven't.
report?
Well, I was gonna say, I did, really, no, not really. I was away since last Thursday, I was away, and I had a great time. I went to New York to West Point for a conference, and I had the privilege of going to West Point to meet the cadets and their instructors and walk the campus. The history was compelling to me, and it just gives me, I don't know how to say it, but more greater pride in our country to see what we've gone through to get to the point we are, and the many men that have died to get us here. So that whole experience was fantastic, and the views were great, but it reaffirmed my faith and confidence in the country because of those that went on before me to sacrifice their life so I can have what I have. But nonetheless, while I was away, there was a sewer spill from Spring One Pump Station, which dumps into that horseshoe, beautiful, beautiful horseshoe pond.
Where does that Horseshoe River flow?
Weebiantic.
It goes into the Weewiantic. So as we dedicated Horseshoe Mill this morning, we had sewer running underneath the waters.
I can't say. All I know is that it was calculated while I was gone. It was calculated that we put 40,000 gallons into that.
Untreated.
It's not a pump station. It doesn't. It's before it gets to the pump station.
And when did that happen?
I
didn't
believe
give
it was
us a
Monday.
date.
I believe it was Monday. Monday was what, the 15th? I can look at when I started getting emails from the DEP. And so the reasoning I was told was because of the grease blankets coming to that pump station is not allowing the floats to work, or the multi-trodes.
So where's the grease coming from?
Well, let me start. I will say everything that's in Wareham Crossings, everything that's in the industrial park, and
So
over.
they don't have grease traps.
Well, they do. Some don't.
I thought you were gonna hire somebody to go out there and do a survey and for
Listen,
all of our grease
I've
traps.
done the survey. Let me say this: all the grease traps in the Wareham Crossing are up to par, and I get their reports monthly. I was out there with them. I went to the donut factory. They're up to par. They redid all their traps and all their things. And then we don't have anything in the malt. We have in the malt factory. We have an in-sink one. So and I think that's pretty much it. And at BB's they have one. They have extensive. But here's the issue: it's volume. So the law says you clean your grease trap once every 3 months, and they do. But if you're producing a ton of grease, 3 months isn't often enough. So we have to regroup and go back and say, okay, now do it monthly or do it every couple of weeks. That's manpower. I'm alone, and I'm trying my hardest to do everything else I got to do
So-
and get out there.
We only the sewer department, sewer staff can do it.
Yes, I have consultants I can hire, but I'm struggling just to get the consultants for what I need done for the normal stuff. So it's a nightmare, and it's not gonna stop because it's revenue. The town's making tremendous revenue, and it's not gonna stop, and that's the bottom line. I have to figure out ways to beat the system, and we're looking at different chemicals I've been adding, and we'll spend a ton of money on chemicals, we'll continue to try to accommodate these pump stations, reduce all this grease so our system can work. And we've got a new chemical we're trying, which is astronomically expensive, but if it can decrease the grease at the pump station so it works, functions properly, then so be it.
So these chemicals are put into the pump stations.
Yeah, to liquefy the grease so it doesn't clog up,
And as we get colder,
we put more. So,
Yes.
yeah, it coagulates. We have blankets on Springborn Pump Station, constantly has a 3-foot blanket of grease. Grease. Just keeps coming in. Toby Road line, I've jet rotted it 7 months ago, I need to jet rot it again now, because that line is greased up. So we've got grease coming at us like crazy, like crazy.
Yeah, can I add one little story to that?
Sure.
So when I was working at the Narrows pump station, we were looking to put a diffuser into the wet well. So I'm down at the wet well, the diffuser weighs about, 50 pounds, it's this big circular cylindrical device. So I'm looking over the well, and I see a little bit of grease, what I thought was on top, but I thought the weight of the 50-pound diffuser would punch right through it. Boy, was I wrong. It was literally like a mattress floating. And that was my first, I could have jumped out and stood on top of this.
Oh,
This is the,
we've got to do something. I mean, this is,
Yeah,
everything's breaking down because
Yes.
grease is coming into our system.
with grease and other things in the industrial park, but beside the point, you're right. And we have restaurants downtown Wareham that have no grease trap. We've got one that's cooking some great meals, but they have no grease trap.
How come?
Because there's no place to put it. It's old, it was put there for many years ago, downtown Wareham, and I try to squeeze them, I think at the Riverside, we had to squeeze it into a closet area. And just, some places just have no place, some gotta go in the basement, it's a fight.
If it's a
fight.
basement.
It's a fight. And restaurants are revenue generators, we make tax money on them, and so everybody wants restaurants. And that's just the way it is, because the town needs the tax revenue.
Yeah,
All
that's to the point that we have sewer dumping into our rivers.
Yes,
That's a
ma'am.
great
Yes, ma'am.
exchange for revenue.
So, and
I'm
yes, ma'am.
sorry,
I think,
I'm having a tough one with that one.
me too, I've been having a tough 12 years. What I see, and I mean this with no disrespect to anybody, but no one really looks at sewer for what it is. It's just something over there in the corner, it's under the ground, it's stuck way out, nobody, and they just make decisions based upon what they think they need, and sewer's never considered, and we eat all the
as
issues.
I've said time and again, what everybody knows about sewer is that when they flush the toilet, it disappears, everything's good. That's the extent of the knowledge. You turn on the sink and it runs down the drain and it's gone away, everything's good.
But it's insane.
Anything from that point forward, they have absolutely no conception.
out of sight, out of mind.
Absolutely, completely.
And I remember fighting for increases when it was with the selectmen, and they would just adamantly no, and I would try to explain to them. And another thing that always troubled me is getting people to go in these pump stations, because it's an experience. If you went into Narrows Pump Station and walked into the wet well, trust me, just getting down the stairs, you would have a whole new enlightenment as to what happens. You may start losing sleep. But that's the issue. Everybody talks about it. Everybody has ideas about it. Everybody has ways of spending the money, but no one gets to the nitty-gritty to see actually what's happening, what is truly, truly needed. And that'll never change. That'll
Is
never change.
Greasezilla still working?
It is, it's working great.
But it's not our grease.
It's not our grease. Our grease comes into the system, I can't remove it to cook it in the Greasezilla. I wish I could. I wish there was technology to get it out of the system.
Suck it up at the
Pump
pump
stations?
stations and put them in a truck and deliver them to Greasezilla and let it go.
I'd like to, because what happens when we suck it up, it takes a amount of water with it too, and it dilutes it, and that part of, with the vector, because we have to vector it out, so I'd like to find a way to get it
So-
out. I really would, because there's tons of it.
What type of pollution happened to the Wee Wee Antic because of this 40,000 gallon spill?
yeah, you know, just dilution is a solution to pollution, right? So it's all diluted. I mean, now, to be frank with you,
And
I
toilet paper and wipes
bacteria
and
is a
all
big
those other stuff
viruses.
that's
all that good stuff. So we added tons of chlorine. We chlorinated the line. We do what we can to address any type of bacterias.
That's how we get whitefish.
I'm sure the BODs and organic matter is out there. That the organic matter that's in the water. It's food for some things, but you know, I couldn't give you definitive answers to the effect. I know the DEP is asking for tons more reports. The Marine Fisheries is asking for tons more reports. EPA has given 100 suggestions to make sure it never happens again. And so we're dealing with all these agencies. They just want us to spend money to make it more redundancy, so we're trying more redundancy. So we'll address all their concerns and all their input, and we'll address it and try to get past this. And what's really not funny, but 2 days later, so it happened on Monday, Wednesday it happened again. We caught it, and it was only about 100 gallons that went down. So when we reported that, they were kind of like, what do you mean? So Weston Sampson is coming in to put some of that redundancy so that if the grease grabs those floats, they're going to send a signal saying, wait a minute, we're not working. So we know that it's not working, we go down there and try to figure it out to try to stop it before it happens. So we're looking at all possible scenarios and trying to add some type of alarm for all those possible scenarios, along with adding more chemicals to dilute it. We have a vac to come in, but nonetheless, we have to hire our guy back and do more factoring of the main lines, Industrial Park line, Toby Road line. We got to keep vacuuming to get the grease out. And so it's a problem. It's our hot spot. So we're going to keep working at it and see where we go. But I wanted to bring that up because it is an issue. You know, it almost made me want to stop any more additions to that pump station. Period. No more business, no more nothing. Done. We're done. No more increases. I went into a business, and I won't say the name. They called me in because during that, when we lost Kendrick Pump Station, it backed up into their building. So I went to visit them. They wanted me to pay the bill. And I said, well, I don't see how that happened. So they invited me in. That business has grown in the last 7 years to 5 buildings. I don't have records of it. I'm not paying, they're not paying what they should be paying. So I sent them a form and I told them I'm going to bring back the industrial pretreatment form so they can tell me what exactly happens there. I need to know how much space they're using because we go by square footage for the industry, it's square footage and all that. So what happens in industrial park, if there's a vacant building here, you're in business, you go out of business, so we stop your account. The guy next door goes to the owner and he buys that space and he's using it. I don't know anything about it. So we're not charging for it because there's people working there, whatever. So this goes on all the time. We have no record. I have no way of following any of this. But when I got in there, I'm like, oh, so you go, that one, yeah, that one, wow, yeah, we're growing, we're really growing, we're really doing it. Oh, okay. And I think when he gets to his president, they probably won't be happy that he invited me in, but that's another story. But I'm going back and I'm going to say, okay, reevaluate the EDUs and I'm going to make them do the form. And they're complaining that the traps are always empty. Well, when you have great suction, which means you're probably dumping, it pulls the water and takes all the water out of your traps. So I asked them if they're doing any dumps, and they said, well, not really. So I know I'm in trouble when they tell me not really. So I've got to do some more investigating. That's only one business in that industrial block, and they're all doing it. They go from 1 gallon to 1 million gallons. It's a little exaggeration on my part, but you know nothing about it. As they increase their business, they don't tell us anything. But that's flow we have to deal with, and all the other things that go within that flow. So I have to figure out a way to stop that. I don't know how to do it, because we have no control over the businesses.
But speaking of flow, just to change horses for half a second, was that meter installed in the
It is.
in the pump station?
It is.
One?
It is. It's installed at Cohasset Narrows Pump Station. It was supposed to come back Tuesday, I believe, or maybe today, maybe Wednesday. I'll have to follow up on it to look at the numbers and see how it's working. But they installed it, was it last Tuesday? No, I think it was last Tuesday morning we installed it. I gotta tell you, when we're there, the water coming from that area that was crystal clear like groundwater was almost nonstop. Prescott Avita is nonstop, pure water coming at us, I, just pouring, we're like, oh my goodness, check this out. I just throw that out there, so I don't know what they're giving us for gallons.
Too bad the spill at Springboard wasn't clear water.
It would've been nice,
It
it would've been nice.
So that's, it's only about 20 seconds long, you might have to rewind it here in a
Holy
second.
mackerel.
Just kept coming, never stopped, pure water,
From where?
from Bourne.
Wow.
But if you see
Down
how
there.
how clear it is,
Yeah.
it's.
At
Yeah.
Hudson's Bay, coming over the
You get a
bridge
line
into
now,
our
you
pump
know,
station across the Narrows.
Yeah.
Oh, man.
They have a
From
force
Main
main.
Street.
Mhm.
They're all broken to I.
Yeah, with, yes.
It's not sump pumps or anything like
There
that?
could be some pumps, I'm sure there's some pumps. I'm sure there's some pumps.
Oh, how nice, then we pay to process that.
We pay to process that, absolutely. And we're reimbursed $400,000 a year.
$1,000?
$400,000 a year reimbursed. Last bill we did through the billing cycle was $600,000, but they give us $400,000 a year, so they're paying for whatever we're treating.
Okay,
Not to mention the ammonia they sent over, free of
can
charge.
we talk
The
about
the
Bourne
ammonia,
now?
get out of that, the ammonia. But anyways, so, that's that. We're having issues at the plant, skater was down again, just those kind of things, we're trying to get that done. We're gonna try to include that into our
That's a
our
parts
project.
problem, right?
It's a parts problem, it's an antiquated problem. We have the main,
Parts problem.
yeah, the main, technology to, hardware and software.
Yep.
The main, what do you call it, I keep saying coaxial, but it's not coaxial, but fiber optics, whatever, is broken. And it's supposed to continue, but it's broken, so that's gonna be a whole lot of money to replace that. It's like fiber optics, it's broken, and the design is that, no matter, we've got, throughout the plant, we have 4 CPPs or computers. And they each run different buildings and different programs that run different pumps and motors, et cetera. So if we lose like say CP1 goes down, then it redirects and comes back around to make sure it operates. We lost that main fiber optic, so when we lose something, we lose something. And we've had that problem, so we did all the troubleshooting, and that's the same time we had them come into our main generator, is not putting enough energy out to give us the power we need to do the transfer, which took out all our backup batteries, and so we're trying to get all this straightened out. So I'll let you know that makes out, and that's gonna go in that capital plan too. So to your point, it's endless as to what we need. The plan is, just for edification, the plan is not new. There are people that believe that plant is new. It was designed, the last design was 1999. All right, and it was completed in 2005. I don't know, in wastewater, electronics,
have a warranty?
15 years, yeah, I know, huh? So just, when there's, oh, it's a new plant, it's not new anymore, and so you take that and you go back to the 80s upgrade and the 70s upgrade that we haven't touched because we only did a portion of the plant. There's a lot of still original 1972 equipment, as the clarifiers in 1972. So it goes on and on and on. So when we talk about replacing and repairing, people get kind of shell shocked, but the plan is not new. And I'll leave it at that.
That's for sure.
And
Well-
that's all I have.
I mean, yeah, we've had swords since the 70s, so.
Yes, ma'am. And so a lot of it's still old.
Some pumps are still an issue.
Yes. I don't wanna let the cat out of the bag, Mr. Chairman, but what we're looking at, and we'll have a public meeting on this, is when we do down in the Wankinko area, the grinder pumps, we're looking to utilize the old abandoned sewer lines to tie in sump pumps to take it to the drainage. We're running it by the DEP as we speak.
That's a good idea.
As we part of our presentation, we're thinking that we gotta give options, and that may be the most viable option there is for that area when we do the grinder pumps.
Well, if we're gonna eliminate that line and usage for here, it would seem to make some kind of sense, and if it makes sense, it probably won't work.
You know, so, cause we want it
So
out.
it would discharge into the Buzzards Bay.
Yes, cause we,
It's like stormwater.
like stormwater,
Stormwater,
it'll become
that's all.
stormwater, and we'll put filtration in the end to meet
That's all
the
it is.
MS4 things, but yes, that's what we're thinking.
That'd be
Because
great.
it would be a
if we
good
could do that.
answer and
That would-
solutions.
That would help some, that's for sure.
Yes, yes, yes. So we're looking at that also.
All right,
Any update by any stretch of the imagination on homes connected, reconnect,
Now, we'd probably get one a month, because it just, you know,
but at least it's working.
yes.
It's still
when-
working.
Yes, and for full disclosure, if people's septic system fails, they have no choice.
Yep. Yes, Sandy.
have we gotten, has Patrick helped us in any way, or the selectmen help us in any way getting numbers for,
No,
nothing? So we still cannot anywhere, we're nowhere close to getting a usage bill.
from water, you mean?
Yeah.
No.
Can we talk about the Warren town meeting? Russ was there, can we ask him to give us an update?
No, it was just a,
Cause you know there was an article on their town
no,
meeting.
but that was a non-binding
I
article.
know, but very public article, yeah,
Yeah,
to say no to the outflow.
So maybe I can read the article verbatim as it was on the town meeting warrant. So anything I say about that, I was there in person, and this is strictly my interpretation of what I saw and how I'm translating it. So apologies in advance if things are saying out of context, but as Guy mentioned, we age, we forget things. I still remember pretty good what happened over there, so.
Good, good.
Article 11.
touche.
Let me, okay. how do
I think he's insulted me indirectly, but I'll leave it at that.
Yeah, exactly, yeah. We'll pass
Insult
on that now,
myself,
right,
I
yeah.
think. Article 11, to see if the town will vote to request that the Board of Selectmen and Sewer Commissioners, who are the same body,
Right,
oppose any federal, state, or local wastewater permits for a collection system for the Massachusetts Maritime Academy in the Taylor's Point area of Buzzards Bay, and the subsequent disposal by direct discharge of treated or untreated wastewater into the Cape Cod Canal or the waters immediately adjacent thereto. Sponsor W. Thomas Barlow and others. So the way I interpret that article is that if it passed, which it did with a majority vote, that the Board of Selectmen would not entertain any even evaluation of this as an option, and that's strictly my interpretation. But let me state that the Board of Selectmen and also the Sewer Commissioners and Board, it was a 0-4-1 to endorse this. So of course, you wanna evaluate your options.
my
So-
understanding, excuse me, Russ, my understanding, correct me if I'm wrong, because you were there. That article, by them passing it, all that's really saying is that they are recommending to the selectmen and the sewer commissioners that they do not support the line,
The discharge.
the discharge. That's all that's saying. It's not,
Well, they want that, they're
Yeah.
they're saying that they want them
Yes.
to deny it.
right. It's only essentially a recommendation to them
Mhm.
to deny it, which is
Um,
non-binding referendum.
As far as, I'm not a legal expert, so I don't know how these things play out. But I also got my hands, there was some information passed out on a flyer, which has been emailed to the superintendent, he can pass along. But I learned a few things, it was interesting. For example, and this is on the flyer, only 4 inches of rain from a storm causes treatment plants to overload and discharge the wastewater untreated.
I found that interesting.
I did too, because didn't we just have 7.7 inches of rain?
We did,
Did you have an overflow?
It was all contained.
no.
Okay. It says that we wanna, let me turn the phone this way. Buzzards Bay Coalition along with Wareham proposed to expand the Wareham wastewater treatment plant into a multi-town treatment plant and pump all of the treated wastewater from 3.5 up to 10 million gallons a day into the Cape Cod Canal using the Massachusetts Maritime Academy outfall pipe.
Can't be done.
So we're gonna use a 35-year-old undersized outfall pipe to put 3.5
It's just
today. So the moral of the story is that, and again, it's my belief that the Board of Selectmen and Board and Sewer Commissioners, of course, want nothing to do with this, but it's just, it's difficult, because you go into a town meeting like this, right? And I'm chatting with the folks in front of, nice people, great people, laughing, having a good time, and I actually saw this flyer folded up. They had it. I said, would you mind if we took a look at that? And they're like, oh yeah, we're here for this article, and we support, you gotta protect the canal, it's what we all want. And I'm reading this, and it's amazing, just the information. I shouldn't say it's amazing, because we've seen it with so many other events that have happened,
The misinformation.
misinformation. And it's just really frustrating, because it draws things out, and it's frustrating that people have the right to their opinion. I've said this 100 times. That's just like Guy mentioned West Point, the people that, I was in the Marine Corps, I fought for this country and the rights for people to have an opinion. I'll never take that away from you. But base your opinion on the facts. These are not the facts.
There you go. Now you're confusing the issue again.
There-
You want
Okay.
facts involved.
And
So, I'll leave it at that. You know, I know the town of Bourne's working with environmental partners to develop their comprehensive wastewater management plan. That's expected, I don't know what the timeline is to receive the recommendations and outcomes, probably 1 or 2 years or something like that, so. And I get it, it's a major thing to say, we're gonna put town's wastewater into the canal. And I think a lot of this was in, like, you know, NIMBY, knee-jerk sort of reaction. But if you look at the canal, you know, and just this real point, interesting that, you know, everyone is wondering why, you know, how does the nitrogen not impact anything? Well, when you put this nitrogen in such a fast-moving water, it disperses the nitrogen. So all the nitrogen particles are far apart, right? Nothing can feed off it. So for example, if you take a handful of sand and throw it in a fast-moving river, what happens to sand? It goes all apart, right? If you take a handful of sand, drop it in a pond, it settles right down. Well, that sand, or the nitrogen, you know, it's going into the agalom, and we all know this, But that's physically right there, where it disperses, it blows it, it churns it all out and separates it enough where,
You know, you're talking about the sand, but I think that the best visual I had to describe that, on that dispersion that takes place, is to fill up your sink with water, and then put a drop of Dawn in it.
Yep.
And what does it do? Nothing.
and it's
And
fun.
you put that same drop of Dawn under the faucet when it's on,
Exactly.
it's,
Exactly. You know, and a lot of the comments too were complaining about, you know, what is this fresh water that's gonna come into the, it's funny, because we heard it, you're killing our natural resources, we're doing this, blah, blah, blah. So, a big concern was the amount of fresh water entering the salt water and how that might damage the ecosystem. So my first question was, the canal was man-made, correct? So it's technically not a natural, but that's here, there. Who knows what was, before the canal, what was there?
Freshwater rivers.
The Scussett River. What is the definition of a river? It's fresh water coming into a,
Think about the
into salt water.
Atlantic.
Think about all the fresh water we've
I don't
restricted
dig it.
from coming into the, and that was very, at the presentation today, they said, when you have that fresh water mixing with the salt water, it creates a very valuable ecosystem that certain plants and animals' life thrive on.
Yeah, like smilts.
Like smelts, like all these other things. And I really wanna show, you know, if you look at at Wareham's outfall, you know, it's a pipe about this big and, you know, a decent amount of flow. That's 1 million gallons a day. We're talking for, you know, 40 years from now, 3 million gallons a day, so triple that. I mean, it's really not that much flow when you look at the, so it's a lot of misinformation. I have extremely sound, rational explanations to each, which again, like you would say, so that of course they won't be listened to.
Oh, heaven forbid you
like-
don't believe science.
like, don't confuse me with facts when my mind is made up.
Yep.
It's a very tough thing, and unfortunately, it just, in the meantime, more and more ponds are gonna be closed to algae blooms, more and more beaches are gonna start seeing the impacts of nitrogen pollution. And it's just,
And they didn't mention all the fertilizer, all the green grass lawns and everything else, or what's coming out of Title V, or
No.
cesspools that are still existing.
well, they mentioned that, you know, the treatment plant doesn't treat for PFAS and all these, but treats it a whole lot better than your septic tanks do, we can tell you that much. I don't know, I'm getting a little,
Frustrated, yeah, you're frustrated, we all are.
It is, I think of the, you're right, all the stuff that's dumping presently into the canal through all those homes and condos and all that stuff along the canal, and they're dumping in it, and it's not even a consideration or concern.
But
It's
the problem
stormwater.
there, we have that same problem right there, is that gets in there, but it goes this way to get in there. Now you're talking about something that's gonna go
out
like
of sight,
this.
out of mind, you're absolutely right.
go in.
People don't understand that concept with it going through the ground, and that's exactly what's happened.
That's the whole problem with it, you
Yep.
know, they just they don't understand putting that fertilizer on the grass is gonna leach down through and work its way out, and that's where it's gonna go.
And people don't do their research. They listen to folks and just grab onto something they think is right, and they run with it without doing research.
There's references to New Bedford's system that discharge, well, New Bedford has a combined system that
Combined
has a
system.
stormwater, so that's irrelevant. There's references to the pipeline in Plymouth broke, costed 40, well, that was raw wastewater and the cause was hydrogen sulfide. There's no hydrogen sulfide here. You know, we've, but again, if your mind's made up,
Yeah, exactly.
they didn't hear what was just said, that, oh, we don't want it, it's gonna break and cost $48 million.
And what people miss, if the canal, it's going to be timely. where all the alternatives are gonna be a longer period of time, so the problem's gonna take longer to solve. Where an outfall will get us to solutions a little bit quicker, and they don't wanna hear that, and that's important.
Not only will it get the solution quicker, in the long run, it's gonna save probably 10 times the amount of money it's gonna cost to put it in.
Yes.
If you look at the regional cost savings,
That's what, exactly, that's what I'm
Even
getting
more,
at. I
so
mean,
it's-
and it's not just,
what's gonna either move this forward or not move it forward is when the neighboring towns, Bourne, Marion, when they get the results of their CWMPs and those, the firms doing it are qualified firms, it's Weston and Sampson, they know what they're doing. And, they're gonna come with their recommendations, and they are what they are. If the recommendations say you have to really think about this regional opportunity, that's fine if you don't wanna listen to GHD, but when you have an engineer that you're on, no, I'm not saying this again, if someone's watching, I'm not putting words in the mouths of any other engineering firms. But if the CWMPs recommend further evaluating the regional effort, then you have multiple engineering firms supporting it. What are you gonna do, keep hiring an engineering firm until you get the answer that you want? It's not the way, we have to give you the science-based information. Or the recommendations may come out and say, you know what, if you do it individually, we found this way to do it at this cost. And it's what all the CWMPs come down to. It's whatever alternative meets the goals at the cheapest price is always the one that's picked. So the goals of this are, what's the town of Bourne looking to do? So, it's interesting. We'll see how this progresses.
well, that's basically all we can do. I mean, we're still continuing to move forward on the plan to get as much information on and be able to go forward with it, but, at what point in time it hits that immovable wall, we'll see. Maybe it will, maybe it won't.
Mr. Chairman, it may be a good time to mention that we met with the Department of Transportation for the rail, drilling under it, and they're very receptive. They said to move forward with preliminary plans, and so we are. And I asked for another scope and costs, et cetera, I'll present to the board, but DOT, we presented 100 feet drill, come up along in the right of way, and they see no issues. And so, that project of drilling to the canal is moving forward.
Yeah, so, I think we're still on target with it. There's gonna be the shotgun practice that's taking place right now, i.e. Bourne, and there'll be some more of that type of stuff, but,
Well, we got a lot of interesting things happening. We're gonna have some results of the flow meters coming in, some decisions will be made on that, and
it's once we get some of that information that's quantifiable that we can do something with, then we get in the position to be able to go back and, sit down and talk to Bourne on a more rational basis than we can at the present time. We can be pretty, rational and upfront, but we've got a lot of gaps informationally that we need that they don't provide, that we're gonna have to acquire, in spite of them.
And Mr. Chairman, I'm not trying to be divisive, and I don't want to cause rift, and I mean that, because we should become neighbors, and we should work together to solve all the common problems and interests we have. So because all the stuff we're doing is not a reflection of us not wanting to deal, it's just that we have to get on a nice even basis.
We've gotta have the information to be able to make the case, to be able to get on
It's
that.
not an adversary.
That place. Yes, Donna?
Education is the key here. And if we can meet and get a really working consensus with Bourne, maybe we can figure out how to talk to these folks, and how to educate them.
There's been a few attempts, and again, it's not the selectmen or the sewer commissioners, they get it too. We've had virtual meetings, the coalition had a few, and it's a very challenging, what happens when you get these virtual, 50, 60, 100 people, town meeting, there's several hundred people.
Right.
What needs to happen is that, one by one, these issues of concern, like what happens when freshwater enters saltwater, what happens when it has to be explained in a sort of format that people don't, it's almost they have to do with like very small groups. And I've said it from day, I'm happy to talk to anybody for whatever length of time and try to explain these things. But it's very quick to put misinformation together and to get people to believe. Sometimes it takes, 5, 10, 15, 20 minutes to explain how we've thought about this, how it's not going to happen. But if people don't wanna listen, they're just not going to.
Well,
I'd be happy to meet with any resident, any person to sit and explain, and I've even, you know, the folks that have sponsored this article. I mean, you just have to be asked point blank, where did you get this information from? Because it's absolutely wrong.
well, exactly, and that's what I'm saying, we need to educate, and I'm not sure how to do it, but we need to educate if we're sending out flyers, whatever we have to do, we need to do. And if we have, people that aren't local even, come down and talk to these people and explain the science to them, maybe they'll listen.
There are some, excuse me, Russ, there are some programs in process and being looked at to get it out there through public relations, et cetera, to educate the masses. So there are some groups right now making sure that this information gets out, because it has to get out, because people need to be informed properly. So we're working on that.
And the EPA,
yes.
get somebody from the EPA down there to talk to these folks. I mean, you know, there's a lot to be said with these agencies, people will listen to them better than
One of the
you
things
or
that
I
you're
or-
also fighting, aside from a town meeting such as Bourne's was, is you've got, like the Cape radio station, which is a talk show thing. I happened to be listening to it the other day, and there was somebody on there going, before the town meeting, going on a rant
Sure.
about this thing. And I don't think, other than the fact that pipeline and canal were probably the only two words that he said that were factual. But he went on, and you can't compete against that, you can't.
No, because it's a
Argue
closed
against that.
forum.
You
All you
can't-
can do is listen, you can't put your
Yeah,
input
you
back.
just,
So, I don't wanna say anything about this specific, but sometimes in these sorts of things where a project does not move forward due to misrepresentation, it ends up getting appealed, and then it goes to a higher court of review, where any local influence goes out the window, and then it's engineers, scientists, you know, decision makers that say, well, the applicant was absolutely right, and we're gonna withhold the appeal. And sometimes, unfortunately, that's the quickest way to get a now, I'm not saying anything specific about this project, but generally speaking, I've run into that with towns, with internal lawsuits within towns I've been involved, you know, with other communities and things, just crazy things that happen. And again, it's a massive project, I get it, it's a lot to absorb, and if I was not an engineer and I was a resident, I would probably be really concerned as well. But my first step would be, hey, who's someone who's smarter than I am, and let's listen to them. We have some of the best minds in the world, the Woods Hole Oceanographic Institute, renowned scientists, spent $700,000 to get
but
the
they don't
feedback.
believe them.
In New York, the Department of Environmental Protection partnered with a group of engineers and contractors to extend an outfall many miles, doing boring, out to the ocean to get rid of all the issues within Long Island. So, you know, everybody knows that it's a solution. In wastewaters, they didn't say do septic systems, they didn't say to ignore it. They did treatment plants, they built another one, a new pump station, and get it out. Because it works, because the treatment facilities today are treating down to unbelievable numbers. We treat nitrogen down to 2 parts per million. There's not a treatment system, IA, that can meet that number.
And that's with almost every town we're running. It's this push for IA. First of all, they're getting, at best case, maintained, owned, operated properly, 10 or 11 milligrams per liter. So for every IA you put in, that would be equivalent of 3, 4, 5 homes on traditional gravity sewers. What's the long-term operations? If you have an IA, you're basically an operator of a mini treatment plant. You know, there's a system coming out that has the wood chips and everything. Well, it's great. I love this stuff. The technology is great. But when you look at a mass rollout of this, do you really think you're going to be successful getting hundreds of homes to convert their septic to put in some wood chip? What happens in 5 years when some biofilm surrounds all the wood chip media and it has to all be replaced? Who's going to pay for that? You know, there's a million, and that's why these things, they're provisionally approved by Mass DEP. even if everybody loved it, we can't do that, cause it's not authorized for use on a grand scale, so it's not the town, you have to get it through DEP. Oh, we've had, it's been in, we put it at the base, we've had it there for the last 4 or 5 years. Okay, well, what happens after 10 years? When you have wood chips, that wastewater is running through, my first thought is, what type of formation and gunk and goo is gonna grow on those wood chips? Cause I've seen it at recharge facilities that are not maintained, I've seen it all over the place, where you have living matter going around, the wood chips, I mean, it's just, and what we run into with and I try to tell other towns, listen, I've worked in, doing this for 25 years and working in other towns, this is always the way it goes, it's the same thing. Do we wanna sit and talk about all these things for the next 5 years and continue to watch the world beneath us get worse and worse, or do we actually wanna make a difference?
Let's just reinvent the wheel each time around.
We've been doing that for 25 years, keep kicking it, and
Yeah, let's reinvent the wheel again.
let's just keep kicking.
They kept bringing up MWRA, oh, there's an outfall pipe into Cape Cod Bay from the MWRA that goes out 9 miles. It's funny, because no discussion of what happens when that fresh water enters Cape Cod Bay, that seems to go away when they talk about.
Oh, cause it's
But-
9 miles out.
Well, it's 9 miles out, because it's 40+ communities, including Boston, that has over 100 times the flow.
350 million gallons per
It is-
day minimum in bed. When they have storms, it can be up, 5, 6, up to 900
It's-
million gallons. It's
So
astronomical.
that's why that's 9 miles out. And if you put it out by Cleveland Ledge, where people are saying you don't have that water velocity, so the nitrogen doesn't separate, and will actually be a worse, it will cost more, and it'll be a worse environmental effect out there.
Anyways,
But again, the NIMBY.
Yeah, but what do I know, it's.
Okay,
Can we get in, how'd the plant do in the last rainstorm?
did good. I think we had a basin and a half full
The new one,
of the old one.
of the old
Never
one?
got to the new one.
A basin and a half full, that was it?
That was it.
We weren't coming, why did that improve over, what was it, a couple of years ago, we almost overran?
I think what
duration
happened
of the
is,
storm was
it
less.
was the duration, and it's one after, we had
Well,
three.
not only that,
Groundwater.
everybody lost power, so there was no sump pumps hitting it.
I think when those storms hit,
Absolutely,
the
that's
groundwater was-
huge.
yeah, but plus the groundwater, and even
was
though we've been
higher.
getting a ton of rain now, we went through a long drought
Major
period.
drought.
So that groundwater went way down, and now it's on its way back up. But I think that had a lot to do with the
I'm sure.
2018 storms. We just, overall, we had a saturated ground
Yeah,
in those.
that's why there was so bad,
Also,
but
the rainstorms that we've had have been of a short duration rather than the ones that we've had before.
Yeah.
That blew them over the edge.
so are the
Yeah,
new,
forever.
They were heavy, but they
new
were
ones
short.
working?
Yes, new ones are online, have been, yes, working fine.
Yeah.
So we're prepared. We are prepared for anything that comes at us. So, we're looking at the spring, will be another trial, and we think we're ready for that. And it's kind of exciting. It really is to know that we have a tool.
Check that one off the list of about 300 other things.
So,
But it's a big one. It's a big one.
Yep.
Okay, do we have any other new business?
Yeah, yes, yes, Mr. Chairman, one final. We haven't talked about Bourne's billing for the basin that we've completed. How are we doing that? Bourne's portion.
What has been our normal?
We used to just bill them. And
For a
we used to bill
percentage,
them
right?
within the billing process that we used to
We
have.
bill them for-
We don't have that same billing
We
process.
bill them at a percentage of the
Yes, their
cost.
percent, which was, I believe,
Then we should be putting together a bill
A bill?
on
I'll
a percentage
look
of that
into it.
cost, period,
because I know the new,
by itself.
okay, because the new IMA talks about one fee. So I'll have to go back to the IMA and dig out the percent and set up a bill for that. Okay.
Did we ever get copies of the new IMA?
Well, we got I think so, the new billing, it's $400,000, I think it's a 1.5 annual increase or something, maybe 2 points, I forget, but that's it, flat fee.
But I think that,
But we-
that particular thing should be just a bill for that, that's separate
I
and
think we should
distinct all
look
by
at it
itself.
separate, yeah.
The percentage, that's how much.
Because we
it
did
is,
send
period.
them letters, Mr. Chairman, saying that we were gonna do these projects, and I think we did that, so, I don't know if this is, but we did, so we'll have to look
It's
at that.
that simple.
My question, I don't think I got an answer. Did we ever see a copy of the new IMA?
Well, it wasn't an IMA, it was what do you call it, MOU
Memorandum of
of
understanding.
understanding between Tom and Derek. That was what they did a few
Okay.
years ago.
Did we ever get a copy of it?
I thought so, we have a copy, I'll look it up, but,
I've never seen it.
okay, then you, we'll get you copies. There's copies out there. So I'll get you a copy.
It might even be on the town of Bourne's website. I know the old IMA was on the town of Bourne's website. I don't know.
They did an MOU to the billing. And the billing used to be all these formulas, whatever,
Yeah.
that, and
Yeah.
it was controversial, and our consultant, if you will, CPA, was saying that we had certain numbers they owed us, their CPA said, oh, no, we're looking at it this way, so it was very controversial.
Well, for the longest time, but I didn't even know it got resolved.
It did, they wrote up a new MOU,
So,
Derek and Tom, they signed it, and that
About it
became,
Didn't never came here.
well,
No.
what, I don't understand, why, what the heck are we doing here if we don't see this stuff or we're not a part of it? I don't understand this.
well, the IMA is to be administered by the town administrators. That's in the IMA. So they administrated it and they made a decision.
It's not part of ours.
So
Oh,
I
it
don't know
just
how
would have
that-
been nice if they had shared.
Absolutely. Or at least the selectmen weighed in too. They should have weighed in also.
Yeah.
Everybody should have weighed in. Their selectmen, our selectmen, their sewer commissioners, our sewer commissioners. I believe that, yes, but it didn't go down
Didn't
that
go
way.
that way.
It's wrong. It's wrong, and somebody needs to be talked to about it, because it's wrong.
Just, it goes to the, transparency. We all say we're transparent, but are we really? But anyways, so
course you're
I will
not.
set something up, write something up, I'll submit it and we'll look at it and we'll, to make sure it meets the percents, et cetera. I'll give you the backup, why I picked that percent that's in the IMA, and we'll set up a bill and get it out.
We fixed that, problem between Speedway and Cumberland Farm, that got
Oh,
all
we
taken
did.
care of, yes.
We did, it was only $25,000.
American.
The sinking
But don't give me another one,
on Main Street in front of the bank, TD Bank, is getting real bad.
yeah, I
That one is
Give that to Dave.
getting nasty.
give that to Dave. Dave's gonna probably say it's sewer, but give that to municipal maintenance, I have no idea. I don't know, I will look, see if it's in line with sewer, but I don't think it's us.
But it is a jaw-dropping bump.
Yep.
And you can't always drive into the oncoming traffic to avoid it.
Give it to Alan.
Yeah.
Oh, and I think, is it Pinehurst or Parkwood?
Oh, don't
Which
go down
one? Where's C Street? Pinehurst?
Pinehurst.
Pinehurst,
Pinehurst.
Pinehurst. If you go down Pinehurst Ave, there's a section that is a roller coaster just before the Association Beach.
Oh, yeah, those,
Take
yeah,
a
yeah,
look at that
oh,
section.
that road is nasty, it goes like this.
Yes,
quite- yeah,
a roller coaster, and I'm
yeah.
saying, just
So-
think what's happening under the ground.
Well, no, yeah, right, and so what happens is when you dig the sewer and anything you dig in the road, when they put back the dirt and they compact it, it takes years, it'll keep settling. And so there could be, and remember, there was groundwater, there's all kinds of things happening
Do you
that,
think anything's broken under there?
I don't believe so, I don't believe so, but, cause we have flow. And you look at the manholes, there's flow, and there's nothing to indicate that there is a problem. Cause it would
Okay.
break and plug and cause a
Alright.
backup and so on.
That's, I just thought I'd ask, cause I was down there for a conservation, site, and I said, oh,
Oh, man,
those look pretty.
I drive it, it's still, when you wanna do a little ride, a roller coaster ride, or, you just drive it, you're kinda like, okay, and you,
We go to Shangri-La for, the one
Yeah.
stretch, and you can see where on the asphalt where everybody's bottomed out and lost an oil pan
Yeah.
from doing.
Pinehurst has been like that for a while, it's crazy, and you're right, it's probably getting worse, but it's crazy. I agree.
Are we it? Is this it?
I think you had to go to the bathroom.
And I
real
know
quick, so-
that, but,
Yeah, I think, I'm,
Anyway, can you do a motion without him being here?
no, I can, no, I'll wait for him. I'll wait for him.
Chairman for a second.
You really have to, just fill in. This is his
Do I
alternate.
get a gavel I can bang?
Yes, you
I've always
do.
wanted to
Yeah,
bang one of
there
those.
you go.
You're the
well, he's
alternate.
got, when's the next meeting?
It's December, is it, December 2nd?
Oh, no, is it December, yeah,
What
December
it
second.
says.
December 2nd. So I am scheduled to go tentatively to have an ablation this first week of December. So I may or may not be at this meeting, I'll let you know.
Just for the record, I had the exact same procedure, and like an hour after it, I was already answering emails and everything, so I'm not buying that at all.
Okay.
You'll be able to make it.
Okay.
Okay,
It's not what my doctor says, but we'll go by what he says.
The engineer is more important than the doctor, so.
that's right,
Yeah, I have no idea. You told me 10 days. We'll see.
Happy to fill in for you, Mr. Superintendent.
So for full disclosure, I've actually contracted because Brian has a medical issue. He'll be out part of December.
Brian who, Miller?
Yeah, so what's gonna happen is I have to bring someone in that can act as a grade 7 or grade 6 operator, because we don't have any other, so I had to go through that process, which we do, we have that set up, so, as a backup to both of us in the event that we're both not here.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes,
I'd like to make a motion to adjourn.
Second.
all in favor?
Aye.
Aye, aye. 4-0-0.
And what time is it, please? What time is it?
7:55.
7:55, yeah.
Say,
And you'll speak to
7:55.
our 3 missing minutes?